I'm David Chadwick, and this is News Talk 1110 WBT. Welcome to the program. My guests, Jeff and Carrie, again, the group's purpose is to help individuals and families deal with the bondage of debt, financial issues they have, and literally free up money so that it can be used for God's causes and helping other people rather than this insatiable appetite always to have more. And Jeff and Carrie, I know we've talked about this before just together at different times in our own friendship, and we've got to somehow teach people how to adjust their lifestyle to their life's needs, not their life greeds. And so much of what goes on with the debt issue is people trying to get what they want now and not willing to wait for it. Then they become a slave, literally, to the person who owns their debt. The Bible talks about don't be a slave to the lender, that we shouldn't have that because we need to respond to God's call to our heart and do what He wants us to do rather than to always have to respond first to the person who owns our debt. You know, we're asked to do something to help others, and we first have to go to the God of debt and say, may I do that? And so often the God of debt says, no, you can't. You got to first pay this loan off. So you're trying to help people free up God's money for His purposes. Let's talk some about that. What's the behavioral issue that needs to change in people's hearts before they can come to you and say, we want to get control of God's money?
Well, I think, David, that's a really great question because as a society as a whole, we're consumers, and we've been trained to be consumers. I mean, we have many different companies out there that have trained us through commercials and through education, and we never really learned the basics of how to handle money. And from a biblical point of view, we understand that, God says, I reward a good steward. What is a good steward?
And let's take a steward. Define steward first, if you would, please.
A steward is someone who's responsible for something that doesn't wholeheartedly necessarily belong to
someone
them.
else's possessions. I oversee somebody else's possessions.
I oversee somebody else's possessions. So if the Lord brings into our lives something, He's giving it to us as a gift to temporarily manage. And based on how we manage what we already have, there's a decision we can make knowing the truth that when we're good managing with what we have, we will be given more to manage.
Well, Jeff, is it fair to say then maybe the first principle that people need to come to grips with as they come to see you is they don't own it? It's not their money. It belongs to God. It's loaned to them for a certain period of time?
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it.
Okay.
And what we also need to look at is what really is in their life. This credit card, this car loan, this student loan, this mortgage, how much interest are you giving back to the bank every single 30 days, which is your hard-earned income, and how can we effectively still get you to a point of owning outright what you've been given? God says that He's going to give us homes. He's going to give us cars. He's going to give us those essential needs that we need. Give and receive is absolutely different from borrow.
So the bank owns the house, for example. We've borrowed the house from the bank, and we pay every month a certain amount of money for the bank to allow us to live there. And what you're talking about is let's get to a point where I own the house, and then that frees up that monthly payment for the purpose of using that money for God's kingdom.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And then when we have full ownership of what's been given to us in our lives, there's a freedom. There's a set free. There's a financial freedom. People don't understand so much what financial freedom really is.
There's a peace, just an overwhelming peace and joy in your life when you're financially free from debt and from a mortgage and from the interest that hemorrhages against us every day, every month, over month after month.
And people are convinced that this is impossible to do, that this is just the way we operate in the United States. We just borrow, we lend, and eventually someday out in the future we'll have it paid off. But unfortunately, we are now seeing the results of not having full ownership and not having people who are financially free. So we have a lot of people out there who are not financially free, teaching other people good financial principles, good financial solutions. They offer you something like consolidating your debt, lowering your interest rate. Those are all banking offers which don't necessarily help you get down that road to be setting yourself free financially.
They're Band-Aids. Yeah.
They're Band-Aids that, yes, are effective. You may save a little bit now, and it'll take care of the problem now, but you've pushed out the sentence further out in the future.
Okay, so they're trying to help people get financially free and have the peace you're talking about. People come to you and they say, okay, we don't want just what the banks offer. We realize God owns everything. We don't want to be a slave to the lender. Then where do you take them? What's the next behavioral issue you begin to address in their hearts to get them financially free?
Well, a decision has to be made. So we want to make sure that that each and every individual has made a decision that they're going to take accountability for their own financial rescue. A lot of us look to the government, we look to the banker, yet we know that those institutions have been around for a long time and want us as clients for life. So when they decide that they no longer want to be a borrowing client for life and they want to have full ownership and freedom and control over their own finances, they've now made a decision. If they follow with the tools that we give them, they'll accomplish the results.
So the next most important step is to be like Popeye and say, that's all I can stands, I can't stands no more. I'm really going to take some steps to get out of this situation. I don't like being a slave.
That's right.
Exactly.
And we have two different types of clients. We have those who have a whole load of debt. They're at the end. They can't borrow anymore, and they need to start working their way out of it. We have another type of client that is already doing very well, have a lot of ownership of things in their lives, manage their finances very well. They might be on target for having all of their stuff paid off, and they're on schedule for 12 years, and we come in, we do a full forensic accounting on their current situation and say, oh, wait a minute, we can cut this, and we can all of a sudden now take someone who is normally really good on track to being out of debt in 12 years and have them paid off in 3.5. Something that they could not calculate for themselves, and we help them and give them the tools. They follow the path, they'll get it done.
And I imagine
guaranteed.
Those people look at 3.5 years, they go, that's attainable. I can do that. So an excitement starts to build for them to discipline themselves to do your program.
You're right, and we're really, really building hope. And the basis of this program is unlike any of those get-out-of-debt programs. The get-out-of-debt programs are basically like, eat beans and rice, get a 15-year mortgage and no more, and sell everything you have and buy a used car. That is not very attainable in our society today. We want to help people who are living in our real society
and
accomplish
all levels
those
of life.
results.
Jeff and Carrie are my guests today. They are helping people get out of debt, and I want to give them the chance to keep talking about this in just a moment. I'm David Chadwick. This is News Talk 1110 WBT.